Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a monumental career, one that started in the deepest psychedelic underground and just ended in this glittering commercial explosion, and we are unpacking the genius behind it all.
It's a huge one.
So grab your high-heeled boots, dust off the feather boa, and, prepare to cover yourself in glitter, because we are diving deep into the architect of glam rock, Marc Bolan.
It's just a study in phenomenal self-creation, isn't it? Bolan-born Mark Feld. He lived this intensely impactful yet tragically short life. We're talking 1947 to 1977.
So short.
But in that compressed 3-decade window, he didn't just participate in the cultural shifts of the time. He was the lightning rod that channeled them into a whole new sound, a new look.
Absolutely. And the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they finally acknowledged that profound influence, inducting him and T-Rex in 2020. But to really get a handle on his impact, you have to start where one of his closest collaborators did, the producer, Tony Visconti.
Oh, Visconti is key to this whole story.
Right, because he looked at Bolan and didn't see someone who needed, technical refinement. He saw pure, raw potential.
That quote is so critical, Visconti said. What I saw in him was raw talent. I saw genius. I saw a potential rock star in Mark right from the hour I met him.
Wow.
And that speaks to an immediate, undeniable charisma that just went way beyond musical ability. And that charisma, really, that's the thread that runs through this entire deep dive.
So our mission today is to unpack that evolution for you. We're tracing how this acoustic folk poet became an electric superstar and why, long after his death, his sonic and visual DNA is still visible across so many genres.
You're talking glam rock, punk, post-punk.
All the way through to new wave, indie rock, even Britpop. I mean, this is a man who knew how to market magic.
Well, to understand the superstar, we have to start with the boy, Mark Feld. Born in Homelton, London in 1947, and his background is just so crucial to the ambition and, well, the theatricality that fueled his entire career.
Okay, let's unpack the origins of Mark Feld. He was the second child of Simeon Feld, who everyone called Sid. He was a cosmetic salesman and a former lorry driver.
Right. An Ashkenazi Jew with family roots in Russia and Poland. And his mother was Phyllis Winifred, who ran a stall at the Berwick Street Market.
That family background feels like a perfect crucible for a future star, doesn't it?
It's a fantastic mix. You've got the street hustle and the commercial savvy from the market stall.
And then the theatricality and salesmanship from the cosmetics trade. I mean, that mixture of commerce and spectacle was just baked into his upbringing from day one.
And the music started early.
Very early. He got his first guitar at 9 years old and immediately started a skiffle band, that very British blend of folk, blues, and jazz.
And the band was called Susie and the Hula Hoops.
Which is great in itself, but here's the piece of trivia that really speaks volumes. The vocalist for that little skiffle trio, a 12-year-old Helen Shapiro.
Get out of here. The Helen Shapiro.
The one and only, who would go on to have massive UK hits herself. It's just validation that even as a child, he was gravitating toward and working with some really serious talent.
But the Mark Feld identity was also defined by this streak of sheer dramatic rebelliousness.
Oh, yeah. That rebellion really climaxed at Northwold Primary School. His formal education ended, well, very dramatically at 15 when he was expelled.
And we have a pretty vivid description of what happened from a friend who was there.
So the story goes that he'd done something wrong. He gets called in to see the deputy headmaster, a Mr. Pearson, who then threatens to cane him.
And Mark, who is already, fully formed in his sense of personal drama, just flatly refused the punishment. The headmaster told him to hold out his hand.
And Mark responded by nutting the deputy headmaster.
And he headbutted him.
At 15. It's this physical, visceral rejection of authority. It feels like a perfect dress rehearsal for the countercultural star he was about to become. He didn't just fade away, he went out with a bang.
And that defiance, it immediately translated into a relentless focus on his visual identity. After leaving school, he just dove headfirst into the burgeoning mod movement.
Which was all about sharp tailoring, modern music, and this air of sophistication.
Right. He becomes an extra on a TV show called Orlando, already dressed impeccably as a mod. And this leads pretty quickly to a brief but incredibly telling stint as a model.
He joined an agency and became what they called the John Temple Boy, appearing in closing catalogs.
And as cardboard cutouts in high street shop windows.
What's so fascinating here is that he was a visual innovator before he was ever a musical hit maker. A 1962 Town magazine photo spread actually featured him, still as Mark Feld, and cited him as an early defining figure of the mod movement.
He understood the complete package, the hair, the clothes, the attitude, before the songs were even fully formed.
But the text for stardom, and the right name, was a real slog between 64 and 67. It was a period defined by trial and error, moving through different managers with very different ideas of what he should be.
His first manager, a guy named Jeffrey Delroy Hall, tried to shape him into a mainstream pop idol.
Like a Cliff Richard type.
Exactly. He had him record All at Once, which was this slick commercial track designed to be a hit. It showed he was willing to chase success, but it wasn't authentic, you know?
Then he meets the child actor Alan Warren, who becomes his second manager. And this is when Mark Feld briefly becomes Toby Tyler.
And Warren commissioned these photographs that showed Bolan wearing a corduroy peaked cap, which was a very direct visual nod to Bob Dylan.
So you can see the shift, right? He's moving from trying to be Cliff Richard to aiming for that folk poetic authenticity of Dylan.
Absolutely. Warren had acetates cut of him covering Dylan's Blowin' in the Wind and Dion's The Road I'm On Gloria. He was absorbing the mythology of the serious, introspective songwriter.
And here's where we get that truly phenomenal anecdote that just speaks to the sheer randomness of early show business.
This is one of my favorite stories.
Alan Warren, who was struggling financially, sold Bolan's contract and those precious early recordings to his landlord, a property mogul named David Kirch, for just 200 pounds.
Just stop and think about that. 200 quid. That covered 3 months of his back rent.
The contract of a future global superstar was literally used as collateral for a few months' rent. It's just unbelievable.
But this is where the influence of his early life comes roaring back. His mother, Phyllis, refused to accept it.
She marched straight into Kirch's office, said Kirch wasn't doing anything for her son's career, and demanded he tear up the contract.
And he did it. Kurtz just complied. It's this wonderful protective moment that often gets glossed over in the Bolan myth of the lone cosmic artist.
Right. It shows that beneath all the swagger and the mod persona, he was really relying on the fierce working-class protection of his family.
So finally, in August 1965, he signs to Decca Records and adopts the name that would stick, Marc Bolan.
And the name itself became part of the mystery. Was it a contraction of Bob Dylan?
Was it from the actor James Bolam? Bolan himself eventually said that Decca Records just chose the name for him, which emphasizes that even his identity was, to a degree, commercially selected.
His debut single, The Wizard, featured session giants like Jimmy Page and Big Jim Sullivan, but it didn't chart.
And neither did the follow-up. These repeated commercial setbacks led him to his next great manager, Simon Napier Bell.
Napier Bell saw the songwriting talent and slotted him into the band John's Children in 1967. They were known for being a chaotic, high-energy live act, but
still, the record sales lagged.
And this is where he first encountered censorship, which is fascinating for a man who would later define sexual ambiguity in pop. Their single, Desdemona, which Bolan wrote, was banned by the BBC for the line, "Lift up your skirt and fly."
The establishment was clearly a bit wary of him even back then, but his time with John's Children was brief. It ended abruptly after a pretty ill-fated German tour with The Who.
And Bolan, feeling creatively adrift, he just retreated entirely into his own mind. He entered this period of self-mythologizing.
He started writing fantasy novels, things like The Kraken Mist, alongside his really dense poems and songs. This was the moment the stage persona Mark Feld was buried, and the mythological Marc Bolan was born.
And he cooked up one of his most enduring origin myths during this time.
The levitating wizard in Paris.
Right. He claimed he met a wizard who passed on secret knowledge. Now, biographers quickly figured out the wizard was probably the American actor Riggs O'Hara.
But the fact of the encounter is way less important than Bolan's commitment to the myth. He was actively shaping his own story, you know? He was transitioning from a guy who sang songs to a poet who channeled cosmic knowledge.
And that neo-romantic, intensely poetic focus directly informed the sound of his next incarnation, Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Right, and the next stage of his career, Tyrannosaurus Rex, it really emerged from chaos. After leaving John's Children, Bolan decided to form an electric rock band with this grandiose, powerful name.
But that initial electric lineup was a complete and utter failure.
A disaster. Napier Bell recalled that Bolan placed an ad, auditioned musicians at 3 p.m., and then put them on stage at 5 p.m. The result: they were just got booed off the stage.
And that disastrous debut, it accidentally led to the duo format that defined Tyrannosaurus Rex. Napier Bell said the humiliation was such a blow to Bolan's ego that he didn't have the courage to try it again with a full band.
So he stripped it all back, It became this acoustic duo, Bolan on acoustic guitar and vocals, with these dense, arcane songs, and he paired up with Steve Peregrine, took on hand percussion, bongos, and bits of kit.
It was this delicate, deeply psychedelic folk rock, a world away from the impending roar of glam.
And that acoustic sound immediately found a powerful niche in the UK underground. They were championed heavily by the BBC Radio 1 DJ John Peel.
Peel was a crucial early advocate. Their success was based on creating this intensely atmospheric, really a poetic experience.
They released 3 albums with Took, 2 of which cracked the UK top 15. They had a minor hit with Deborah in 1968.
And their high point of underground credibility came when they played at the first Free Hyde Park concert in 1968, which really solidified their status within the whole hippie scene.
But the music was really a vehicle for Bolan's incredibly verbose, esoteric lyrics, wasn't it? Full of wizards, unicorns, ancient battles, mythological creatures. This era wasn't just about music. It was Bolan's literary phase.
And in 1969, he published his only book of poetry, The Warlock of Love.
The critics were pretty divided, with many just dismissing it as self-indulgent, flowery nonsense, the rambling fantasies of a high hippie poet.
But the public loved it. The book was a commercial phenomenon. It sold 40,000 copies and became one of Britain's best-selling poetry books in 1969 and 70.
That's staggering, and it shows that his ability to create this mythology deeply resonated with his audience, even when you stripped away the electric guitars and the glamour.
It really demonstrates that Bolan wasn't just seeking fame, he was seeking credibility. And he found it, but through a medium most rock stars just avoid completely. However, that partnership with Steve Peregrine was turbulent.
Yeah, Took was described as free-spirited and a heavy drug user. He was fired after a notoriously difficult first American tour, largely due to creative differences and his drug issues. Bolan replaced him with Mickey Finn.
And the arrival of Finn coincided perfectly with Bolan's growing, maybe impatient, urge to move beyond acoustic poetry and electrify his sound.
He realized the limitations of being a purely acoustic duo in an increasingly loud rock landscape.
The shift was deliberate. Bolan started incorporating more amplified guitar lines.
Yep.
And here's a massive piece of rock history transfer for you.
The Syd Barrett guitar.
The sources confirm he bought a white Fender Stratocaster, decorated with a paisley teardrop motif, directly from Syd Barrett, the former Pink Floyd genius who had descended into mental health struggles.
That is essentially the ceremonial passing of the psychedelic torch. The pure, acid-soaked spirit of the 60s was literally embodied in that guitar, which Bolan immediately used to propel himself into the new decade.
And you can hear this transition so dramatically on A Beard of Stars, the final album released under the Tyrannosaurus Rex name. The album closes with Elemental Child,
which has this long, loud electric guitar break that was clearly and directly influenced by Jimi Hendrix. The folk poet had found his electric voice. The metamorphosis was complete.
Before we leave the psychedelic era, though, we have to revisit that utterly perfect, bizarre anecdote about the first Glastonbury Festival in 1970.
Oh, this is the stuff of legend, but with a pastoral twist.
Tyrannosaurus Rex actually headlined the first Glastonbury. It was called the Worthy Farm Pop Festival then, after the Kinks canceled at the very last minute. Michael Eavis was about to cancel the whole thing.
And Bolan steps in. Their sunset performance was later cited as an inspiration for the entire festival. But Eavis, being a dairy farmer and not a concert promoter, was completely broke.
So he agreed to pay the group £100 per month over a 5-month period.
But the money came entirely from profits made selling cow's milk from the farm.
The future king of glam, the man whose look would define androgyny and extravagance for a generation, was being paid his fee in monthly installments of dairy profits.
It just underscores how quickly he was about to jettison that hippie back-to-nature world for the glittering, hard commercialism of the 70s pop scene.
That milk money phase did not last long. By 1971, Bolan had shed the pastoral poetry and fully embraced his inner rock god. And the first move was purely strategic, shortening the name from the cumbersome Tyrannosaurus Rex
to the slick, punchy T-Rex.
And this name change, it coincided with an upgrade in his arsenal. He bought a modified vintage Gibson Les Paul, moving away from that more ethereal Stratocaster sound toward something dirtier, louder, more aggressive.
Perfect for the charts, and the commercial breakthrough was instant. The single Ride a White Swan, which Bolan admitted was partly inspired by the commercial simplicity of Mungo Jerry's In the Summertime, marked his definitive electric pivot.
It came out late in 1970 and peaked early in 71 at #2 in the UK charts, a breakthrough that just solidified his move into the mainstream.
And Bolan then expanded the core band, bringing in bassist Steve Curry and drummer Bill Legend to form a proper quartet.
This expansion leads us directly to the moment that changed rock music forever, the precise foundation of glam rock. Bolan's appearance on Top of the Pops in March 1971.
He was performing the follow-up single, Hot Love, a track that went straight to #1 and stayed there for 6 weeks. But the music, it was almost secondary to the spectacle.
The outfit was iconic, a satin sailor suit. But the crucial element was the glittering accent on his face. He performed with glitter on his face.
Specifically described as glittery gold teardrops beneath his eyes. And this look was immediately recognized as the foundation of the glam rock movement, a look that was magical but also sexually heightened and androgynous.
That single appearance, combining tight rock, flamboyant costuming, and this overt subversion of traditional masculinity, it just fundamentally set the visual template for the decade. Suddenly, gender norms in rock were optional.
It makes you wonder, though, why the glitter? Who came up with it? The sources offer 2 great contradictory accounts.
I love this part. His personal assistant, Chilita Secunda, is often credited with applying it just before the show, knowing the massive impact it would have under the studio lights.
However, Bolan, ever the master of self-mythology, later said that he noticed the glitter on his wife June Child's dressing table before a photo session and just casually daubed it on his face.
Whether it was calculated brilliance or spontaneous genius, it stuck. And with that visual weapon locked in, T-Rex achieved a level of commercial dominance in the UK that was almost unprecedented. People were comparing it to the Beatles.
The run of hits was stunning. Between 71 and 73, they had 11 top 10 singles, including 4 #1s. Hot Love, Get It On.
Which was retitled Bang a Gong, Get It On, in the US where it hit #10.
Right, and Telegram Sam and Metal Guru.
And the accompanying 1971 album Electric Warrior is just universally cited as the album that essentially kick-started the UK glam rock craze. It hit #1 and sold massively.
The commercial footprint is almost incomprehensible today. Sources calculate that T-Rex record sales accounted for approximately 6% of total British domestic record sales during that period.
6% of the entire market.
And the band was reportedly selling 100,000 records a day. That's market saturation on a scale we just rarely see anymore.
And yet here's the mind-bending commercial contradiction that makes you question the whole music industry structure of the time.
Right. Despite all the gold discs, all the #1s, the daily sales figures, no T-Rex single ever became a million seller in the UK.
And even more bizarrely, no T-Rex record received official certification. No silver, gold, or platinum until 1985.
And the reason is pure bureaucracy. The record company had to pay a fee to certify the sales, and Bolan's company just refused to do it throughout the 70s.
So you have this collision of immense cultural omnipresence being played everywhere with this profound official indifference to procedure. It tells you Bolan was more concerned with creating cultural moments than racking up paper accolades.
And while he was dominating the charts, he was operating directly alongside his friend, rival, and mirror image, David Bowie.
Their relationship is so complex and deeply intertwined with the invention of glam. Their history went back years. Bolan played guitar on Bowie's 1970 single Prettiest Star.
And they shared key infrastructure, the same manager, Les Kahn, and the same crucial producer, Tony Visconti.
That proximity naturally bred creative competition. Bolan was first to hit the charts with the electric glam sound, but Bowie quickly followed and expanded the concept into the complex, highly conceptual Ziggy Stardust persona.
And Bowie consistently acknowledged Bolan's foundational impact. The sources confirm his 72 anthem, All the Young Dudes, explicitly name-checked T-Rex.
And perhaps most tellingly, his song Lady Stardust is widely interpreted as a tribute to Bolan. The original demo was even titled He Was All Right, a song for Mark.
There were 2 sides of the same glam coin, weren't they? Bolan, the Dionysian, earthy street poet, and Bowie, the cerebral, conceptual alien. And the competition just pushed them both to greater heights.
As glam matured, Bolan wasn't content to just repeat the formula. Between 73 and 75, he began this process of musical evolution, trying to create richer textures.
He started incorporating elements from American R&B and soul, most notably bringing in female backing singers. You can hear that clearly on tracks like 20th Century Boy.
His 73 album, Tanks, showed a conscious effort to move toward funk, soul, and gospel influences.
And he continued his collaborative spirit. In 1973, he played twin lead guitar alongside Jeff Lynne on Electric Light Orchestra's On the Third Day album. That shows he was highly respected by his peers.
This search for richness continued into '74 with the album Zinc Alloy and the Hidden Riders of Tomorrow. He expanded the lineup even further, including a second guitarist, Jack Green, and, crucially, his new romantic partner, Gloria Jones, on keyboards and backing vocals.
This was Bolan actively trying to create more complex, involved music. He was moving away from the catchy two-minute pop perfection that defined his initial chart success and trying to show he wasn't just a glitter-covered pop act.
Bolan's incredibly focused creative period was, of course, mirrored by a complex and pretty tumultuous personal life, marked by intense emotional connections and dramatic public contradictions.
Yeah, his first serious relationship was with Teresa Whitman, but his first marriage was to June Ellen Child. They married really rapidly in January 1970.
And June was incredibly important. She was a former secretary for his management and had previously dated Syd Barrett. She really understood the industry.
Biographers note that she was highly influential in shaping his career and raising his profile. She acted as a grounding force, at least initially, for his escalating theatrical ambition.
But the intensity of his fame led to instability. The marriage dissolved due to Bolan's serial affairs, which included singer Marcia Hunt and artist Barbara Nessum. The final breakdown happened in '73 when June discovered his affair with backing singer Gloria Jones.
And there's a really heartbreaking detail related to June. She later revealed that she'd undergone several abortions during their marriage because she felt Bolan just wasn't mature or stable enough to be a father during the frenzy of T-Rextasy.
Wow. By '73, Bolan was in a committed relationship with Gloria Jones. They had a son, Roland Bolan, born in September 1975.
And his birth certificate name was Roland Seymour Feld, which is a fascinating callback to Bolan's original abandoned identity.
The divorce from June was finalized in June 1976 on grounds of adultery, with June explicitly naming Gloria Jones as the third party. Bolan's response to the ruling was, well, it was a classic piece of Bolan performance art.
He was quoted as stating, "Anyway, I'm gay. I can't say I was a latent homosexual. I was an early one. But sex was never a great problem. I'm a great screwer."
He had also said in a '75 interview that he considered himself bisexual.
And that's a significant cultural statement. In the mid-'70s, his public ambiguity around his sexuality was a final validation of the androgynous persona that had fueled glam rock. He was reinforcing the idea that the rules didn't apply to the rock star.
Right. At the same time, Bolan had retreated a bit from the UK spotlight, spending time in tax exile in the US and Monaco. But by '75-'76, he started a determined and successful professional resurgence. He made a real effort to clean up his image and his health. He lost a lot of weight, returned to the UK looking trim and sharp, signaling he was ready to re-engage.
He showed his ability to stay current by incorporating disco elements into his '76 album Futuristic Dragon. Singles like I Love to Boogie and New York City did pretty well, confirming he still had commercial pull.
The comeback really reached its apex in 1977 with the album Dandy in the Underworld and a new UK tour. And this is where he showed his incredible intuition for cultural relevance.
He took the punk band The Damned along as his support act.
A veteran glam rocker, the very embodiment of early '70s excess, embracing and collaborating with the emerging punk movement, a movement that was explicitly defined by its rejection of his peers. That move alone cements his ability to stay relevant right up to the end.
His return to television was equally successful. Granada Television commissioned him to host a 6-part series just called Mark. It was broadcast during the post-school half hour, geared toward teenagers, and was a massive success.
And the final episode of Mark is famous for its special guest, David Bowie. After Bowie performed his new song, Heroes, they launched into this closing impromptu jam together.
And here is the unforgettable, almost prophetic final professional moment. As they started playing, just a few words into Bowie's vocals, Bolan stumbled forward dramatically, lost his footing, and fell completely off the stage.
The sources say he managed to grab the microphone just before he hit the ground and flash a smile. Bowie's amusement was clearly visible. The band just stopped playing, and because of the tight schedule, the chaotic footage was aired exactly as it happened.
A perfectly imperfect theatrical and chaotic final bow.
What makes his death just 2 weeks later so intensely tragic is that it felt like the fulfillment of a self-imposed prophecy.
Right. Bolan never learned to drive. He had this deep-seated fear that he would die before he reached 30 years old.
The irony is just layered with automotive metaphors. Despite his fear, cars are mentioned in so many T-Rex songs. He owned several expensive vehicles, including a Rolls-Royce.
Which, in another twist of dark fate, was loaned out to the band Hawkwind on the very night he died.
The fatal incident occurred early in the morning of September 16, 1977, agonizingly close, just 2 weeks shy of his 30th birthday. He was a passenger in a Mini 1275 GT driven by Gloria Jones.
They were heading back from a club in Berkeley Square. Both had been drinking. The car failed to negotiate a small bridge and struck a fence post, then smashed into a tree in Barnes, southwest London.
Bolan died instantly. Gloria Jones was critically injured but survived. His funeral was held just 4 days later, confirming the high esteem he was held in. Attendees included titans like David Bowie, Rod Stewart, Tony Visconti.
Steve Harley? Even a young Boy George. His ashes were eventually interred beneath a rosebush, a final poetic touch for the warlock of love.
Decades have passed since that tragic night, but Bolan's influence is utterly foundational to modern rock and fashion. His rock shrine at the site of the crash is still actively maintained by the T-Rex Action Group.
And the recognition just continues to grow. In 2011, there were plans for a school in his honor in Sierra Leone, the Marc Bolan School of Music and Film. More recently, in 2025, an English Heritage Blue plaque was unveiled at his former home.
And his impact on fashion is arguably as important as his musical output. He fundamentally altered how men dressed in rock and roll. It's cited that after seeing Bolan wearing costumes designed by Zandra Rhodes, Freddie Mercury immediately enlisted her to design outfits for Queen's huge 1974 tour.
Bolan's genius was that his style knew how to subvert gender norms into fantastical new shapes. He blurred the lines between masculine aggression and feminine glamour, inspiring designers from Gucci to Saint Laurent well into the modern era.
Musically, his influence on later guitarists is profound. Johnny Marr of the Smiths cited Bolan as his early guitar idol.
And U2's The Edge, reflecting on watching Bolan on Top of the Pops, said, "It felt like he actually cast a spell. I've no doubt every aspect of how he presented himself was just an outpouring of his understanding that things could be magical."
Boy George, a subsequent master of androgynous style, credited both Bolan and Bowie for representing a desired bohemian existence, praising Bolan for understanding that an artist must deliver kind of the complete package.
And his music has enjoyed multiple periods of resurgence. The Bongos were the first American group to chart with a T-Rex cover. The Power Station, the Duran Duran Splinter Group, took Get It On to #6 in the U.S. in '85.
But the big one was in 1991 when 20th Century Boy was in that Levi's TV commercial with a young Brad Pitt. That single placement introduced T-Rex to a global generation born long after his death and sent the track soaring back up the charts.
That track continued its legacy, inspiring the Japanese manga series 20th Century Boys, and it was central to the aesthetic of the film Velvet Goldmine.
The legacy continues today. In 2020, Keisha covered Children of the Revolution, featuring Bolan's son Roland on backing vocals. And the tribute album Angel-Headed Hipster featured massive names like Nick Cave, U2, and Elton John.
And all of this acclaim, all the covers, the fashion legacy, the constant cultural referencing, it all culminated in the ultimate recognition.
Bolan and T-Rex were finally inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2020, with the honor presented by Ringo Starr.
It was a recognition long overdue for an artist who, in life, had dominated the charts but often shunned official bureaucracy. It just confirms that his cultural impact was so profound it transcended the industry's paper trail.
So we trace that incredible dense arc. Mark Feld, the rebellious mod, transforming into Tyrannosaurus Rex, the esoteric folk poet, and finally exploding as Marc Bolan, the glam god. He invented the blueprint that defined a decade, and he packed all of that into less than 10 years before reaching the exact age he feared.
His career was defined by speed, style, and inherent contradiction. This intense focus on the mystical combined with an equally intense focus on mass commercial appeal. He achieved both cultural immortality and immense financial success.
Which brings us to a final complex detail from the source material that really encapsulates the lasting contradiction of his career. Despite the wealth, estimated at a staggering 20 to 30 million pounds, which was about $38 to $57 million at the time.
Bolan arranged a discretionary trust to safeguard that money.
And the source notes that the bulk of that massive fortune remains locked away in trust, with only a small, separate Jersey-based trust fund providing an income for his son, Roland.
It forces you to consider the ultimate cost and complex legacy of a superstar who achieves this level of magical, financial, and cultural immortality so quickly. Bolan desperately chased the spotlight, the glamour, the wealth.
Yet so much of the financial result of that pursuit remains intangible and untouchable, long after the star who created it has dramatically faded. It's a provocative thought about how even the most magical careers eventually confront the harsh, lasting realities of finance and law.